we have to look at it in terms of your genes versus what we call epigenetics. So your genetics is what is in your genes. You have this protein and that protein, and everybody has the same proteins essentially. But some of them are turned on and some of them are turned off. And you have two copies and one copy works and the other copy doesn't. So the genetics is what is available, which proteins are available to you, and which gene you have for like the color of your eyes or the color of your hair or skin or stuff like that. Those are obvious genetic traits. Which ones are turned on, which ones are turned on.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Healthy Heart webinar. We have Cheryl with us today, myself, Leslie, and Dr. Scott Saunders. Ladies and gentlemen, this is episode number 6 of our webinar. And so this is one of our newest things that we are doing, and it came out of a response from all of you really wanting to dig into heart health, what to do to keep your heart healthy. What if your heart, what if you found out you have some things going on and you want to know if there are any other ways to take care of it? Maybe what the alternatives to medicine could be, and you're hoping for some ideas, or maybe you just want to know if you got this from someone in your family. Could it be hereditary? Could it be genetics? And guess what? That's what we're going to talk about today. So if you've been wondering if your genetics could give you heart disease, we're going to ask Dr. Saunders that today. We're going to find out all of the things that we need to know. So, Dr. Saunders, welcome back. I get to see you twice a week. It's so fun.
I know, it's great.
Yeah. So if you guys don't know, on Wednesdays, we have a type 2 diabetes webinar, and we dig into that. We've been doing that for 192 episodes.
Years. That's a long time.
Good for your age.
That darn berberine is so good.
Aging at its best.
That's good. Okay, but it doesn't feel like that long. No, it's been like, I don't know, 3-4 years almost. So been really good. We've done a lot of stuff there. If that's something of interest to you, go to bartonwebinar.com. You can sign up for that free webinar. And guess what? The beauty of these webinars is that Dr. Saunders answers your questions when you are live on the webinar. And I just know what a benefit that has been for me personally, and for so many of you who have hopped on. It's funny. A quick disclaimer: Dr. Saunders is not your doctor, and so he doesn't know all the things that are happening in your body. Even if you send him a quick little message that says I have this going on, he can't see the whole picture. He doesn't know all of your past history, etc. And so it is recommended that you discuss these things with your personal doctor. But I will say, many people hop on here and say that Dr. Saunders is his doctor or is their doctor.
I'm on the customer service side of things. And one of the emails that we send out are people share their health experiences about their heart. And I love hearing all their stories. It's complex, but beautiful. And every single one of them, I'm like, please join the webinar. You can ask Dr. Saunders your questions about your particular issue and get an answer. Like, there's no better place than here.
That's so true. Another benefit of these webinars too is that people hop on and share their success stories, share what's worked for them, the changes they've made, and how that's impacted their lives. And it's helped other people. I love when we see people in the chat and they're like, hey, I tried this and this worked well. And so will say, oh, thanks, I'm going to try that. And just really cool. So that was the goal of these webinars, is just to really kind of build this community. And so if you want more of that, you can also go to our Facebook page. That is called Barton Webinar, and join. It's not a page, it's a group, actually, a private group. So you have to request to join, but go there, share all the things, and ask questions. That's what it's set up for. So with that, we are going to go ahead and get started. So Dr. Saunders, could your genetics give you heart disease? What can you teach us about this?
This is a really interesting topic because we are often told that genetics plays a big part in our health. And it turns out that when we look at what really the risk factors are, genetics plays a very small part in our health. There are a few things that genetics does definitely affect. However, we have to look at it in terms of your genes versus what we call epigenetics. So your genetics is what is in your genes. You have this protein and that protein, and everybody has the same proteins essentially. But some of them are turned on and some of them are turned off. And you have two copies and one copy works and the other copy doesn't. So the genetics is what is available, which proteins are available to you, and which gene you have for like the color of your eyes or the color of your hair or skin or stuff like that. Those are obvious genetic traits, which ones are turned on, which ones are turned off. But for heart disease, it's not that easy. It's actually very complex. And so the genetics is what's available. And then epigenetics is the outside of your genes. How do you turn on that gene or turn off that gene? How do you improve your genetics by your lifestyle? Because the way you live affects how your genes function. You turn on genes by thinking. And you don't think about that, right? You don't think, gosh, I'm turning on a gene right now. Well, there's a lot of things that you do every day, like thousands and millions of things that you do every day that you don't have to think about. You don't have to think about what your blood pressure is all the time. Oh, I think my blood pressure is a little too high. I better lower it. I better think my blood pressure down a little bit. Oh, my heart beating a little bit too fast. I'm gonna have to slow my heart down. No, I need a little bit more. You don't have to think about your heart. You don't have to think about how much air you're getting into your lungs. It's all automatic, right? That's all stuff that you don't have to think about. Well, your genetics is kind of the same thing. It's turning on and off all the time. But if you think about, if you have a really horrible experience that you've had in the past and you think about it, now you're not there. You're comfortably in your living room, sitting on a couch, and you start thinking about this horrible experience you had 10 years ago. And all of a sudden you start sweating, your heart starts beating fast, and your underarms are all sweaty. And you're like, why? How does that happen? Well, you've just turned on some genes that started creating some hormones called adrenaline, norepinephrine, epinephrine. Excuse me. And those genes create these hormones. Then the hormones are released into your system, and they have effects on your body. Excuse me. We have that going on all the time. When you eat sugar, you're turning on the genes to make more of a lot of different things, insulin and glucagon and various peptides. When you eat fat, it's different. You make different genes and different hormones. And so these are constantly being changed all the time. Well, heart disease has something to do with that too. When you have stress, for example, you turn on the genes to create these stress hormones. And stress hormones have the effect of suppressing your immune system. So you can do damage to the lining of your arteries, but it also prevents you from making something called APCs, progenitor cells for the lining of your arteries. The inside lining has an endothelium. Excuse me. The APCs are what fixes the problem, and it's seconds. If you tear the lining of your artery on the inside, if it scratches or something, or has inflammation or something, seconds, within less than a second, APCs will come in and they'll just and they'll pave the whole area, cover it up, and it'll be all fixed and smooth, and the blood will just keep running. If you don't, what happens? Clots form. So stress is really bad for you, and your genetics, it inclines you to either have more or less. There's some epigenetics there, of course, involved with that. some people are just genetically, they're just like calm and relaxed and they never worry about anything. And other people are just naturally going all the time. And they just always have that going and tend to make more stress hormones. And they also tend, we used to call it a type A personality. You're going to get more heart disease from that. So that's something the epigenetics and something of the genetics has to do. But there is one thing you can test for that makes a difference, and that is something called LPA. It's LP, lipoprotein little a, in parentheses, and that LPA is it's a lipoprotein that prevents you from getting rid of the clots. So let's say you have damage and you make a scab on the artery because clot forms on it. Just like if you cut your skin, the scab forms, and then the skin grows underneath it, and then the scab falls off. The skin cells are growing underneath; they come up from below, and once it's all filled in, then the scab will just come right off. Well, inside the lining, if you damage it, you also make a scab on there, just like anywhere else. But what you don't want is to start a big clot forming. Oh, from that scab, now you're getting a bigger clot, because there's blood there, right? And there's all these chemical mediators that produce clots. So what happens is, so quickly, these progenitor cells come in and they make a new endothelium right over the top of the scab. So instead of healing in from underneath like your skin does, it just slaps new stuff over the top as a patch, so that your blood can keep flowing and not make any more clots. It makes perfect sense. It's a beautiful system. But the problem with that is this LP little a gets into that clot that's now underneath the endothelium, the lining in your vessels. So now it's inside the lining of your blood vessels, and that LPA prevents you from getting rid of that clot, so it stays there, and it's sticking out, and it tends to make another clot because it damages again and makes another clot, and then your LP little a will prevent it from reabsorbing into the body like clots usually do. And so, and that keeps happening. So what is seen when biopsies are done of people that have this LP little a, when biopsies are done of the clots themselves, of the atherosclerosis in the arteries, they biopsy and they look under a microscope and they see layer upon layer upon layer upon layer upon layer, and it gets bigger and bigger. And as it gets bigger, guess what happens? Your artery wall is smaller and smaller. You have less blood able to flow through there. And that's where this arterial disease becomes a problem. So that LPA, that's something you can test for, and that's a genetic problem. And we should talk about what to do about that, right?
Yeah.
So some people just have a higher genetically LPA level, or they produce LPAs more than others. So get tested for LPA.
Right. And so you can't get rid of the LPA. And there's right now there's drug companies that are working on getting rid of LPA so that they can get rid of clots. But the problem is that it doesn't lower down. So what they have to do is make antibodies against the lipoprotein A. But that's kind of dangerous because antibodies against lipoproteins can have other effects on your bodies. In fact, antiphospholipid antibodies is one of the problems that causes heart disease because it causes inflammation in the arteries, in the lining of the arteries. So I don't think that's going to be a good drug to take because those antibodies, they may work for, I don't know, a week, a month, a year, but I don't think it's going to be a long-term solution to the problem. So what do you do about that? One of the things you can do is to take niacin. Niacin is is when it's made into niacinamide, it actually lowers the LPA. So, and it can help you by getting rid of the LPA, it can help you to remove your old atherosclerosis as well. I've actually had somebody who had a high LPA, took niacin high dose. If you can tolerate it, and the high dose niacin causes you to release histamine, so you get hot, like a prickly heat. Some people hate that, and they won't take niacin. Other people love it. I've had people say, "Oh, I love it. I sometimes I take extra to get more prickly heat," because you can take quite a lot of niacin. You can take in the terms of grams. So you take 500 milligrams, you're usually going to get some, but it's often helpful. Like in this guy's case, he was taking 1 gram 3 times a day. That's 2 500 milligram tablets 3 times a day. And it removed all of the atherosclerosis in his arteries. So that's a possibility.
Very interesting. I'm gonna ask a question here. Now, a while ago, you had sent us a list of things talking about different genetic factors that were risks for heart disease. And one of the notes that you sent was von Willebrand's.
Oh yeah.
What is this?
Okay, that is a clotting disorder. So some people are easy to clot, and there's a couple of them. Von Willebrand's is one of them. A factor V Leiden is another one, and they're called coagulopathies, where they clot more easily in their veins or arteries. And that leads to atherosclerosis. If you clot more easily, then you're going to form more clots on the inside, and there's going to need more repair. So yes, the problem with the clotting factors, if you're causing more clots, then you're going to have more atherosclerosis.
Very interesting. I'm going to go ahead and ask a question here from someone on Facebook. Holly is asking about the Lifeline screening CT scan. Is that good for coronary calcium score?
Yeah, you know what? I like that. And a lot of people have told me, the cardiologists have told me, oh yeah, don't go with those guys. They're not mainstream. Well, actually, the coronary calcium score is probably the most useful test to look at your arteries. So a cardiologist will do a stress test or a stress echo, and that is not related. It does not predict who's going to have a heart attack and who isn't. And it is especially bad with women. It does not, it can't tell you if women have heart disease or are likely to have a heart attack. Whereas your coronary calcium score gives you an idea. No, it's not predictive of a heart attack specifically, but it does tell you that there is arterial disease, and then that needs to be dealt with. Whereas I've had a lot of people who come in, oh yeah, I have high blood pressure, my cholesterol's high, and my cardiologist says I have to take this new medication and I don't want to take it. What do I do? Well, let's do a coronary calcium score. So we do a coronary calcium score and it comes back 0, nothing. Goose egg. And if they have no coronary calcium, guess what? The research has been done. They don't need Lipitor, especially not that. They don't need to lower their cholesterol, even though the cholesterol is high. Because you know why? We talked about this last time. Cholesterol is not associated with heart disease.
We're going to dig into that again, actually, in a few weeks. We're going to come back to that more about it.
Yeah. So she was not only able to get off, not take the one medication, but she was able to get off all her medication. She had 0. She had no atherosclerosis at all. So yes, do that test. That's a great test.
Awesome. Okay. Great question, Holly. Thank you. Those of you on Zoom, post your questions in the Q&A. We'll get to as many of those as we can. Let's see. Eric is on. Hello. Welcome back. Here's a question from Aubrey. Aubrey said that she had a fall in 2018 and broke a lot of stuff. I had a heart attack as a result and a stent put in. Is it common for accidents to cause heart attacks? And will a stent cause me any trouble later on?
Ooh, a lot of good questions there. Okay, so the accident per se, yes, possibly heart attack. If you have, for example, clots that form from the accident, that could be an issue. So if you've damaged a lot of things, you've damaged potentially arteries, veins, and you could have clots that form in your arteries and veins because of that. You also increase your clotting factors when that happens, and so you're more likely to clot. So if you have like von Willebrand's or a coagulopathy of some kind that causes you to form clots, then thrombophilia, one of those kind of things, then you're more likely to get a clot, and then because of that, you could have a heart attack. You can have, but there's another thing that we often don't think about that's a real thing, and that is when you have an accident or something, then the stress of having an accident, of being out of control because of a lot of injuries or damage, you also get spasms of arteries, and that can happen in the heart. It's called Prinzmetal's angina. And sometimes the doctors will see that because they'll put a catheter in and they'll see that the artery is narrowed, and they don't know why it's narrowed. They can't tell if there's atherosclerosis or if it's just the muscle cramped down that's decreasing the flow to the artery. So often what they'll do is put a stent in there and push it out and balloon it out so that the blood can flow freely. However, that is it's not necessary. All you really have to do is take nitroglycerin or something like that temporarily, and then increase your magnesium. Magnesium relaxes those blood vessels. So any of those are possible. That yes, they could cause decreased blood flow to the heart and cause those symptoms and those problems. Now, your second question was, now I have a stent. What do I do about this? Okay, you have a stent. It's not going to come out. You're not going to remove that stent. It's there. You're going to be on anticoagulants of some kind. Even the drug-eluting stents, they recommend, at least for a while, you take an anticoagulant to prevent clots that form on the stent, because it doesn't have the lining of the artery the way it's supposed to. So clots can form on the edge and then create a problem by breaking off and going down and plugging up the heart, the arteries to the heart. So that's why they recommend anticoagulants after a stent. And I don't recommend stents just because the research shows that there is one thing that stents do, and that's to decrease pain. So chest pain, angina. If you have angina, you can, like I had somebody who couldn't walk from his house to the mailbox to pick up his mail without getting chest pain. So he went to the cardiologist and they put a stent in and he can now walk to the mailbox. And we talked about other options before he did that, but he's like, yeah, I don't want to do that stuff. Just put the stent in and then I can go on with my life. And that's what he did. And he's doing fine. So could be okay.
What about the thickness of the heart? Is that genetic? Some have thicker hearts, thinner hearts. And how does that play into effect?
Yeah, to some extent, that's genetic. So some people have what's called sarcopenia, which means that they have a decrease in the number of muscle cells. And that could include the heart too. So you can have like a thin kind of floppy heart. And some people have really thick-walled hearts. Most of that is epigenetics, though. It's you turn on the genes to thicken the wall of the heart. So people who are like weightlifters and they're pumping iron and they're not doing any cardio exercises, they're just really like just to build muscles. They actually build their heart as well as they're doing that. They're building their heart. So they have these thick-walled hearts that are just really strong hearts. They go boom, 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 boom. and they beat fast. Well, not really fast, but relatively fast compared to somebody who like runs marathons or does a triathlon. Those people that are just long distance, really cardio workouts, their hearts get big and relatively thin, and they beat like 40 times a minute. Boom, 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 because they have bigger hearts, and that's how they get the blood around. So yeah, there is a difference in hearts, and that's really interesting that you can. And here's the thing: when people who work out, like they're doing all the weightlifting, and their hearts are real thick, and they're boom, boom, boom. When they stop working out and they get relaxed for a long time, the thick heart gets weaker, just because every muscle gets weaker as you're not using it, right? So you have this what's called a restrictive heart, where you can't really get a lot into it. So it has to beat faster, and it can actually get congestive heart failure from that. And then the people that do the cardio workouts, or running marathons, they have these big, and they get floppy hearts. So they have this big, and if you have a low ejection fraction from that, if you don't work out at all, after a while the heart gets floppy, and they can get the other kind of congestive heart failure. So it's kind of interesting that after doing that and then not working out, the heart does decrease its function.
I was going to ask you which one's better, the big heavy heart or the large heart, but maybe we should do a webinar on exercise for the heart. What's the best kind of exercise?
Yeah, we should do that. So basically the in between is better. You don't want a real thick, small heart, and you don't want a big floppy heart. Just like, so doing cardio sometimes and then working out sometimes, that's a better way to maintain your heart.
Something I was going to ask you was, you mentioned nitroglycerin, and what is that exactly? What is it used for?
It's used for blowing up mines and killing people, and I don't know, all kinds of stuff. But in medicine, it's a drug that is nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a really, really, really important molecule that everybody needs in their arteries. It protects your arteries from clotting, from causing those clots to build up. It also dilates the arteries. So somebody who has, like I was saying, with the heart, if you've had an accident and you have constricted blood vessels from all the stress of being in an accident and all the damage that's been done, if you have constricted blood vessels, then nitric oxide will just dilate them, opens them up. It's interesting. One of the side effects is migraine headaches. You get headaches. Why? Well, because it dilates the blood vessels to your head too. You increase the pressure going into your head, and you go, oh my gosh, I feel like I got a bunch of pressure in my head. And you do. That's actually what's going on.
Interesting. Yeah, I hear that a lot. People who've gone to the hospital and then they had to give them nitro. Like, I hear this in conversation, but I'm always like, what does that actually mean? I didn't really know. So thanks for educating me. Okay, so many questions. So first of all, I'm just going to quick answer this question for Eric, because this came up. We don't have to dig into this because this was on the diabetes webinar yesterday, but Dr. Saunders mentioned inositol, and someone was asking about it, what it was called, and is it B8? They no longer call it B8. Is that right?
Yeah, they don't call it B, but yeah, it was. Yeah.
Okay, it was something.
It's not a vitamin because we make it in our body. We don't. Okay. It's not a required for life, so that they took it off the vitamin list.
Okay, if you guys want to learn more about that, it was on episode 192 that we talked about that on the fixed blood sugar webinar. And Dr. Saunders is finding some benefits for people. Maybe I shouldn't even say that, but it's helping some people to sleep well, I believe. Is that right?
Partly, yeah. Decreased anxiety, better sleep, and improved heart function too, improved energy production.
All right, well, good. So, okay, so that was one of the questions here from Eric. I love it. Eric always, I think you said this in the last webinar too, when I always have to give the disclaimer that Dr. Saunders is not your doctor and he doesn't know everything. And then Eric says, yes, actually, he does know everything. So anyway, okay.
Oh, no, God knows everything, and I'm definitely not there.
Well, you're doing a good job, though. We appreciate it. So. Okay, here's a question from Don. It says, I'm old, so I get confused easily. Is there a reason the supplement recommendations in the Healthy Heart Kit manual are different than the ingredients in the Healthy Heart supplements? So if you want the specifics in the supplements, there are 3, beet, ashwagandha, and olive leaf, and they're not mentioned in the book. Well, the booklet mentions 3 other vitamins like the ribose, magnesium, and K2. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know what? We went over and over this, and there are some issues in that. We already had K2 in the diabetes supplement, and didn't want to overload on that. And then the D-ribose, it's like teaspoons, and you just can't put that in a little pill, right? This didn't make sense. So mostly the reasons for that are logistical reasons, and we could add the beetroot, so you increase the nitric oxide, and then we wanted something ashwagandha to lower the stress hormone levels, because, gosh, you guys, the problem with heart disease has nothing to do with cholesterol, little to do with blood pressure, and we're going to go over that. We're going to do whole webinars on all the myths. The myth of cholesterol, the myth of blood pressure, the myth of obesity. I've just been doing some research on obesity, and when you look at the death rate to obesity levels, the body mass index. Okay, so a perfect body mass index is about 20, body mass index of 20, right? 20 to 25. The optimum place to be for longevity is 25 to 30. You actually decrease your risk of dying if you're overweight.
I'm going to live forever.
Yeah.
You're going to live forever.
I'm excited about this. This is good news for me.
So all these myths, everything we've been taught is like not true. And so we want to go through all those one at a time and discuss them eventually.
That is interesting. Okay. Yeah. So actually, I think we're going to do a bunch of those myths in June. So be ready for those. It's going to be good, you guys.
It's going to be good.
It's going to be good. Okay. We're waiting for a long time for someone to tell me my body mass index was good. So that makes me happy.
Yeah.
All right.
I listened to a part of a podcast before today, and it was talking about polygenics. And from what I understood, it was like multiple genetic factors that contribute. And the podcaster was issuing an apology because he's reading, after all these studies, it's not as a big deal as he thought it was years ago. And so he's like, you can look up in JAMA, Journal of American Medicine, and he was like listing a bunch of articles that it's not, your genetics are not the key indicator. And I just thought it was interesting, someone taking a very public platform to apologize that it's not as important as other factors.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah.
That's encouraging too.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Okay, question here from Ernest. What kind of magnesium would you take to relax the lining of the arteries?
Oh, any kind of magnesium. Getting enough magnesium is the key. And here's the issue: is because we don't have like staple foods that are high in magnesium, that it's very common to have a magnesium deficiency. So darn it, if you could just take some magnesium, just like pretty much everybody should take magnesium at least on an intermittent basis. But taking magnesium, so the type of magnesium, you'll see this big list of magnesium glycinate, magnesium citrate, magnesium oxide, magnesium sulfate, all these different types of magnesium. And the absorption is a little different for each one, but chelated forms like magnesium glycinate, magnesium citrate, if it has an amino acid attached to the magnesium, it's really well absorbed. And that's a little better because they used magnesium oxide. They did a study that they showed that there's 32 adults. They gave them magnesium and drew their blood to find out how much of it they absorbed. And over a period of about 90 days, their absorption dropped to about 30%. So magnesium, magnesium oxide especially, or magnesium sulfate, that could be an issue. Whereas the chelated magnesium, like magnesium citrate and glycinate, they continue to be absorbed. So that might be a better option.
Okay. A good question here from Gary. My sister is experiencing frequent arrhythmias, slow and fast heartbeats, sometimes with pain around her jaw. She wore a heart monitor for 2 weeks. Her slowest beats per minute was 37, with signs of AFib. The highest was 148. She had an episode at physical therapy a few days ago where it was 171 beats per minute. Her cardiologist is talking about ablation or a pacemaker. She started a double dose of healthy heart support. We just added some PQQ and Shilajit after seeing someone mention CardioClear 7 in the chat last week. The ingredients include PQQ to support mitochondria. I'm saying this wrong. Shilajit. I can't think what that is.
Yeah, Shilajit. Yeah.
I don't even know what that is. Okay. Potentiates CoQ10. Any other suggestions for my sister? She will consult with an arrhythmia specialist next month.
Okay. Yeah. We're going to have like a whole webinar on atrial fibrillation. So the arrhythmia, the atrial fibrillation, is that the atria where that begins the impulse to contract for the whole heart muscle to work together to contract. But the atria isn't working together. You have it kind of fibrillating, which is going all over the place. You have some of them here, some of them there, and they're just contracting all over the place. So they don't have a coordinated effort. And that's what atrial fibrillation is. And the reason that happens is because of a lack of energy, which is mitochondria, that's what you're talking about, is how do you increase the mitochondria in the heart? So one thing is the supplements or the nutrients that you're talking about, coenzyme Q10, adding D-ribose, L-carnitine, and magnesium. Magnesium, it turns out, is a big one, really important for preventing and reversing atrial fibrillation. And don't forget the one other thing, and that is exercise. If you're not pushing the heart, so she's in physical therapy, so she's doing some kind of exercise. But if you're not pushing the heart, pushing your limits a little bit, HIIT is a HIIT exercise, is high intensity. Interval training. And that is where you exercise a lot, like as hard as you can for a short period of time, like 12 seconds. And then you do a light exercise or relax or walk for 30 seconds. And then you just repeat that. And you do that for 10 or 20 minutes a day. And that's that kind of exercise just pushes the limits just briefly, just enough to get up to the high point, and then it's relaxed. Seems to be probably the best way to handle that.
I was going to pull up our YouTube channel here. If you guys haven't been to our YouTube channel, you're going to want to check that out. Probably the best way to do it is just go to bartonwebinar.com. There's a link to our channel. And we have a playlist called Movement with Mariah, and it's all high intensity interval training. And it's really good. They're short workouts, but we've had a lot of people who have absolutely loved the workout. So that'd be a good place for you to go. I'm going to pull it up and I'll post the link, the direct link to it as well. Gary had also asked, would you recommend niacin for her at all?
Niacin. Niacin is very important for making energy. It's an essential part of the Krebs cycle. It's called nicotinamide, and it makes NAD, and nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. And so if you're deficient in niacin, it's amazing, and it makes a huge difference. So I don't know for her specifically if niacin would be useful. I test people, and I test for their vitamins and minerals, amino acids, fatty acids, and I test the Krebs cycle, each one of the, alpha ketoglutarate and fumarate and all that in the Krebs cycle, to see if they do have issues with a specific vitamin, or because sometimes you can have enough, but you need more because an enzyme isn't functioning very well, and so in order for that enzyme to function, you need more. So I can't tell you specifically if she would need it.
Okay. There was one other genetic factor you mentioned, factor V Leiden.
Yeah, thrombophilia. That I have that. I did my genetic test, and they go, "You have thrombophilia," which is really weird because my grandmother got clots in her legs and clots actually in her spine. They left her in bed for a long time, and she ended up paralyzed, which was a big problem. Anyway, so. But I get nosebleeds and it doesn't stop very easily. So I don't know why they call it thrombophilia, because I don't clot very easily. I don't, not excessively anyway. But yeah, that's factor V Leiden. It's a clotting factor disorder that causes excess clotting.
Wow, very interesting. I'm going to quick share my screen with you guys so that you can see this. Here's our YouTube channel, and this is the movement with Mariah. Look at all these workouts. They're so cool. This is free to you. You guys are seeing that, right? Am I showing the right thing?
Yeah.
Okay. So be sure to check that out. I posted the link to that. Let me see if I can get back. I don't usually show this, so this is a good time to do that. And that is not what I wanted. So this isn't my Barton publishing account, so I can't find anything. I just want to show you our YouTube channel. I have a little bit of time here. Oh my goodness.
There you go at the bottom. Oh.
It was okay. I clicked the wrong one. Well, there you go. There's the diabetes solution kit.
And there you
Here
go.
we go. Here you go. Look at that guy. He looks
Who's
familiar.
that?
But if you go to our channel, and you go to playlists, you can see all the different things that we have here. So here's that movement with Mariah. But we also have all the Healthy Heart webinars, and then the diabetes reversal webinar. So there's a lot of good stuff in here. We have some testimonials, but this is like where you could go to get a great education on your heart and type 2, and a lot of other stuff that we talk about too. So this is all free, guys. Check this out. If you're wanting to learn all that you can, this is what I would recommend. So I thought I'd quick show you that.
The name of it is Barton Publishing TV on YouTube.
That is okay. Yep. Okay. All right. Let's see. So Anonymous said, I feel like it's mainly stress that causes heart disease after hearing some of this webinar. Am I right?
Yes and no, because people are under a lot of stress, don't get heart disease. So there's a lot of factors that enter into it. But stress is a large part of it. So if you stress a system, so for example, if you're smoking, why does smoking increase heart disease? Well, it depends. Actually, people who smoke cigars are less likely to die of heart disease than people who never smoke at all. How does that work? Well, think about it. When you smoke a cigar, you don't like suck it in like you do a cigarette. You puff on it. And then I'm not saying you do this. I'm just saying this is what people do. They puff on cigar, and it's a relaxing thing. They sit back, relax, and so it probably has more to do with stress than anything else. Whereas if you're breathing smoke into your lungs, you're stressing the chemistry of your body, and that's a stressor. And it increases your clotting factors and makes you get more clots and arterial sclerosis in your arteries. So in some cases, then you think of like the cigar smokers less likely to die of heart disease, and the cigarette smokers more likely. What's the difference there? Well, I don't know. I think it's the stress difference. I think it's just like sitting back and relaxing. So yes, it's a big factor, because in order for your arteries to repair, you need to have the parasympathetic nervous system working well. That's the relaxation nervous system. Whereas when you have a lot of sympathetic nervous system, your adrenal glands are high and you're in a high stress kind of environment, then you don't repair your arteries very well. And so this is the difference between damage and repair. So yeah, the smoke does damage, but you can repair that pretty quickly. Unless you're stressed out, then you can't repair it, and then you get a problem.
Guys, this is our Healthy Heart Solution Kit, and those are my notes up there. That's why the Post-its are there. But this is the solution. This is, all the things that we're talking about on the webinar, most of them you will find in here. That was my dog. And we talk about stress in here. In fact, we're going to need to do probably a couple webinars just on stress alone. I think that'd be really important. But if you're interested in this, guys, you can find this at bartonwebinar.com. And again, use code webinar25 to save 25%. But this is, Dr. Saunders, when people come to your office, they want to maybe prevent heart disease, or maybe they've been diagnosed with heart disease. Is this information what you recommend to them?
Yes. And we went through this and we said, okay, what's the important part? And we took out the specific important parts of it. What's the best way to handle this? And so that's what we made, because this is not your standard run-of-the-mill heart disease issue or solution. The solution really is it's a little different in this book than it is in any other place. Like a cardiologist is going to give you different information.
Oops, I just realized I was on mute there. Again, though, bartonwebinar.com, and this is one of our newest books, guys. So there's so much good information in this. And honestly, there are also really good recipes. I'll just tell you right now, if you're looking to eat the way that Dr. Saunders recommends, that's always a big part of it too. Food is a big part. I mean, it really impacts our health. And we talk about that in here. But in the back, you're going to find really good recipes that fit in with what Dr. Saunders recommends. And we had a lot of people in our team spend time putting these recipes together, including Cheryl. She has a few good recipes in there that you're going to want to check out. Chocolate cake. Anyway, and so yes, you'll want to do that. Okay. David says, I've been taking magnesium oxide 400
milligrams.
Okay. I'm like,
that's
is there
fine.
a word I don't know? Could be. Should I switch to something else for better absorption?
Not necessarily. The key is to have enough, and getting enough. 400 milligrams a day of magnesium oxide will give you enough. But one thing I would recommend, if you're taking magnesium oxide, it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but if you do it 5 days on and 2 days off, then you don't lose your absorption capacity. So that might be a better idea. Just continue your magnesium oxide and then just take 2 days off. So 5 days on, 2 days off, done.
Okay.
For any magnesium, take magnesium during the week, not on the weekends.
Oh,
yeah, that makes it easy.
Perfect. All right. Okay. I think that's it for today. This was awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Saunders.
You're welcome.
Always great to have you. We appreciate you so much.
All right. See you.
We'll see ya.
Bye.
And I think we've kind of gone through everything that we were going to go through. But guys, if you have questions, in the meantime, you can email me, leslie@bartonpublishing.com, and tell a friend about this webinar, because this is so beneficial. I mean, there's really no reason that you don't want to prevent heart disease, I don't think. So share it with a friend, and we'll see you next week.
Can I share what our topic is next week?
Yes, do.
Inflammation of the heart. I mean, I think besides stress and its inflammation, that's probably one of the most important factors. It'll be one of the better webinars, I imagine.
So good. All right. We'll see you guys. Thank you so much, Cheryl.
Bye, Leslie.
God bless. Bye-bye.